McCarthy Insurance Group, serving the community for over 70 years. For home, farm, motor, life, health and business insurance, log on to mig.ie or free phone 1800 50 11 11. Probably your best call in 2024. Charles McCarthy Insurance is trading as McCarthy Insurance Group, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Real people, real opinions, real talk radio. The multi-award-winning Niall Boylan Show.
It's that time of the night. And by the way, can I mention to you after I'm finished doing this, it is your time of the night. Well, Jane calls it Niall's special time. And if you want to get your calls in now, you can, because we've had a flood of calls recently in relation to this. So all you got to do is WhatsApp or text the word, let me on. And come on the air, tell me a joke, sing me a song, tell me something positive, but just make me feel good. It's the end of the night. We don't want to hear any sad stories. We do woman wanted to come on the other night and tell us about our granny dying. And then when she missed her. I mean, that's not really what we're talking about. Do you understand what I'm saying? Feel good stuff. But first, and if you want to do that, by the way, all you got to do is WhatsApp or text 087 188 0008. As I said, it is that time of the night. We'd like to have an interesting guest. And who could be more interesting than a working, or I should I say, a sex working adult who is an adult content creator from Australia. Maybe they were watching the World Cup, by the way, and Ireland sadly losing 1-0. Anyway, Jenna Love has been a sex worker for over 1 decade, mostly as an independent full-service sex worker and online adult content creator, but also with experience in brothels and massage parlours. She's the president of the Scarlet Alliance, Australian Sex Workers Association, and is the co-host and producer of Sex Industry's podcast, Somebody You Love, which, by the way, was the finalist in the Australian Podcast Awards in the Sex and Relationships category. So she's well known and doing quite well by the sounds of things. She's a pansexual, polyamorous cat mother. There's always an old cat mum everywhere, isn't there? People just love their cats. And has been with her husband for nearly 14 years. Jenna, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Now, here's the thing. When I said to my producer earlier on, and please don't take this as an insult. I don't want you to take it as an insult. I said,
okay.
Does that mean she's a porn star? And she went, no, content creator. So I said, well, then that's just because we're in the digital age nowadays. Is that the same thing? Is that an insult, by the way? Is that insulting?
No, I mean, I don't personally find it insulting. I'm sure there's somebody who does find it insulting. There's always someone. Yeah,
but people are always ready to take insults and take offense to everything.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. But I think that for me, the slight difference is I would describe a porn star or a porn performer as somebody who works with porn companies, somebody who is hired to, whereas a content creator is somebody who's creating their own porn, which is what I do.
Self-employed, essentially.
So very similar.
Yeah. Okay, so
similar.
At what point or what age were you, Jenna, when you said to yourself, this is the industry I want to go into, this is what I love? I mean, were you already like a nymphomaniac and you just decided I could make money out of my favourite hobby in the whole world? I mean...
No. I mean, so there's 2 steps there. So I got into the industry, I think I was 23, which was just over 10 years ago. And I started doing the work because my husband and I got into a bit of a crappy financial situation. Both of our cars got written off in the same week, and we just went, we got to do something. I was studying at the time, and it was something I'd always been fascinated by the industry. Mm-hmm. It had always appealed to me. But I definitely wouldn't say I'm a nympho, and I think that's a pretty common misconception. Is that
you got to enjoy sex?
Like sex.
Yeah, you got to enjoy it.
Yes, I mean most of us like sex, right? And I do.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't say it was something that I, like my home life. Like a lot of my clients, they go, "Oh God, your husband, how does he keep up with you?" And I go, "Well, we've been together 14 years. Like." We don't have sex that often. It's just I'm just a normal person.
Yeah. So I'm always curious about that. When you have clients, and if it's not personal, and if there's any personal questions I ask you and you don't want to answer, please refrain from answering because I tend to.
My work is personal, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, what's the most amount of clients you would have had in one night?
Okay, first of all, I'm going to stop you there on nights because I tend to work during the day.
Okay, day. Okay.
Which a lot of us do. But I would say when I did work in a brothel, I think, and it's quite a lot, but I think one day I had 9 or 10.
Okay.
Which was a lot.
So my next question, here's my next question based on that question.
Yep.
So you've had 10 clients in a day, let's say, max, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you go home after a hard day's work because it's a job. It's just like any other job. It's a job, right? You go home and then your husband is like, all right, Jenna, how you feeling? I'm feeling a little bit horny. So,
No.
does that affect your sex life?
Look, I think in some ways, there's in some ways it affects it in a positive way where there's sometimes I find the more sex I'm having, the more I want it, It's the kind of thing that if I'm on a break from work, I can kind of forget that it exists.
Okay.
So sometimes it can. And if I have a really exciting experience at work, I might sort of bring that home and say, oh, let's try this. I did this and it was amazing, So it can actually be a positive with that. But yeah, there are certainly times when I'm like, no, I don't need anyone near my bits,
Yeah.
So that is a factor. But again, as you said, it's the same as any job. Anyone that's worked a long day at work comes home and they're wrecked and they don't want, they don't want to have to go through the whole thing and then have a shower afterwards and, it's the whole thing sometimes.
But was it difficult?
When you're not newly in a relationship.
Having sex with strangers, right? Now, some of them are probably good-looking guys, handsome-looking men like myself. And other, just saying that I'm 59, I'm past the handsome stage. Anyway, but and other ones, I'm sure, walk into the room and you go, oh my God, I'd rather, You know the kind of person you end up sleeping with, and you rather than wake them up the next morning, you'd rather eat your own arm off. You know what I mean? So have you ever been with a client and you're going like, oh, just can't wait till this ends. Oh, please just finish up there, please. Surely there was guys you hated.
I will say I do see people of all genders, so it's not just men, but the majority is men, and yes, absolutely, there are bookings that I just am counting down the seconds, but it's not based on someone's physical appearance. The reason why and most sex workers I think would say the same. If somebody is hygienic, respectful. Has a decent kind of personality, is easy to chat to. All those things are amazing. If they don't have those qualities, then you're really dreading it. If someone's
obnoxiously rude,
smelly, or if they're an asshole, absolutely. Or even if sometimes because even if you're talking about just like an hour-long booking, the sex doesn't go for an hour, right? You've got however many minutes of sex. And so you're doing a lot of talking,
don't know the guys you're
a
couple of minutes. I don't know the guys you're meeting, Jenna. But
some people, absolutely. And you might do it twice in the hour if they're able to do that. But there's a lot of other stuff going on. So there's a lot of talking, and sometimes like I'm quite a political person. So sometimes something comes out of their mouths that I think, oh God, there's not enough money in the world that could make me want to touch you, But I'm like, well, I'm already here, I won't see them again.
I'm not going near him. He likes the Australian Prime Minister. I hate him already. And I mean, does it change your opinion of men or women or people who use sex workers, primarily men, obviously? But does it change your opinion of men?
Does it change my opinion? I think. I've been doing it for a long time now, but I definitely had a massive learning experience when I first started because I feel really ridiculous saying it, but before I started in sex work, I didn't think that men were self-conscious about their appearance. I didn't think they worried about the way they looked or their body or how they were in bed. And what I discovered was, and I feel silly saying it, but men are exactly as self-conscious as women.
Yeah.
I've had plenty of clients that kind of don't want to take their T-shirt off. They come out of the shower covering up and they're embarrassed about certain things and they feel, it's not unusual for clients to even though they're paying me to say, oh, you might not want to see me because of the way I look, which is so heartbreaking. But it is also comforting to know that we're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
We've all got
I'm assuming,
our body hang-ups.
I'm assuming they worry about their performance as well. That's something they might have a hang-up about, they can't get an erection or their performance.
100%. Yep. Yeah. And those sorts of things are so, so common. Inability to get or stay erect, coming in their minds too quickly, which is actually usually quite average, not actually too quickly at all. And delayed ejaculation is a really common one where it's really difficult for them to reach orgasm. And that's one that I feel like isn't talked about all that much, but that can be quite impactful. A lot of people struggle with that, and it can really impact on their relationships as well.
So are you still seeing clients, or have you moved kind of more into the digital age now? At what point did you decide, okay, this is good, I'm working in brothels, I'm making good money, and I'm assuming you were making good money, by the way, because there's good money in the industry. But at what point did you decide, I'm going to record this, I'm going to make little movies out of it and put them up online? When was that point?
I think that was for me, 2018. That I started doing that. Although I had done a little bit in my personal life, just filming things, And yes, I mean, I'm quite fortunate, and there is some good money to be made. But there's also a lot of people in the industry that are scraping by, and I'd say most of us are really just on we're just on a standard wage. Like, it's not, there's the 1%, but the rest of us are kind of just.
Oh, you must be making, it must be okay. I mean, how much would you charge a client for, I don't know, what's it, a half an hour, an hour? What is the average? A half an hour, an hour? I don't know.
Yeah, look, I don't know the equivalent, but I mean, my rates are on the higher end probably. And I charge $600 an hour Australian.
Jesus, that's all right. I think I'll go into your
business.
Which is.
Yeah,
it's okay. So that's about 400. It's about €400 or €450, I think.
Right.
Okay, so but that's not bad for an hour's work.
Right.
You know what I mean? Some people wouldn't earn that in a week.
Absolutely. But there's a lot of sex workers that aren't getting 1 hour booking a week, and that's what people don't see. So you go, you think, oh, if that's 1 hour, times that by 40. You're millionaire.
Well, I'm assuming you're not doing it every hour for the whole week, 9 to 5, with your lunch, in your bag.
No. Yeah, no. I had some brothel days that were a little bit like that, but not these days.
Okay,
absolutely not.
So you went into the kind of the creator, the content creator end of it, and the podcasting as well, of course, which has been really successful for you.
Yeah.
And has the content creation, because of course OnlyFans, which is big in Europe, I don't know how big it is in Australia, but it's big in Europe, has opened the market. I only spoke to a woman the other day who's now making a really good living, paid for her kids' college fees, everything, all out of OnlyFans. And it's it's kind of opened up this market for women, and women feel empowered by it as well, apart from anything else. I mean, So are you making much money from the content as well now?
So for me, the content is always secondary. I love the in-person work. That's my passion. It's where I feel I found my place there. But the online stuff is great to have kind of a steady, fortnightly income come in, and I do get a bit of excuse me, I do, I like it. I like the idea of people watching me. I'm a little bit exhibitionisty, so I like that. But this is the thing, right? I'm trying to think, when I wasn't putting any work into it, because I kind of go through phases, because it is a lot of labor. I was, you hear people say, oh, top 1%, top whatever. So I was top 10%. And at that time, I was earning, my average for the year would have been maybe 25 grand, which is fantastic as an additional income.
Yeah.
So again, Australian.
It's like a bonus.
As a supplementary thing.
Yeah.
Bloody brilliant. As something that I wasn't putting too much effort in. Fantastic. But what that tells you is that 90% of people on that site are earning less than that. And that's not a living wage. There's absolutely, I live near Sydney. There's absolutely no way you could exist on that.
No.
So, yes, as you said, there are absolutely these people that are in that top 1%, and they are absolutely raking it in, and bloody good on them. But you need, the reason why I'm able to earn as much as I do from it is that I have this big following on social media, or reasonably big, and I already had an established name before I started doing it, and all those things really, really help you, you know. And I think that there's a lot of people who go into it thinking they're going to earn a lot of money, and there's a lot of risks with going into creating your own porn and putting that on the internet. A lot of risks.
What are those? Well, the risks to yourself, I suppose, your own safety, isn't it, as well, too? And being recognised.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an element.
Yeah.
Being recognised, for sure. I mean, I get recognised regularly, and it's interesting because people act really strange around sex workers.
Okay.
Because people are a bit weird about sex.
Here's a question, right? Here's a question. Have you ever been out? Okay, say you're in town one day, or you're in you're out shopping or whatever it is, and you see a couple walking by, and the guy is at one of your, or you've had him as a client at some point. Has that ever happened?
I don't think I've seen them together. I don't think I've specifically had that situation, but I've absolutely seen clients out in the wild. And I've had people kind of come into my social sphere, who were a previous client, and I've gone, oh, good. And I've known that they do have a partner, and because, they talk about this stuff in their booking.
Yeah.
So I've definitely had a lot of interesting encounters, but I haven't
Any Irish
had to
clients?
be like, there's the wife.
Any Irish clients?
Any Irish clients?
Yeah.
My boyfriend's Scottish. I know that's not the same.
That doesn't quite count. I mean, there's a lot of, I suppose, people talk on a serious note. Like they say, and I've heard people, this argument that people who are attracted to sex work or in the sex work industry do so from a place of trauma. Do you think that's true, or is there any element of truth in that?
No, I think that's absolutely coming from a place of stigma.
Yeah.
I think that, for one, look around how many people have experienced trauma in their lives. Pretty high percentage, I'd say.
Yeah.
And if you look at any industry, I imagine there'd be quite a lot of people that have experienced trauma in their lives. That's the fact of life, unfortunately. I would also suggest that, there are elements of the job, like, it can be incredibly flexible. You can earn high sums of money and then take some time off. The flexibility is huge, and that suits so many people who have disabilities, who have mental health issues, who, might be neurodivergent.
Yeah.
So for some things, people may have some stuff that's making it difficult for them to work a 9 to 5, and thus sex work is so much more appropriate for them. So, no, I don't think there's necessarily a higher percentage of people in the sex industry who have experienced trauma.
Okay.
But and for those who have, it makes sense.
And what about,
it's a good fit.
What about the shame? We're kind of always led to believe that we should be ashamed of our sexuality in some way, or ashamed of, sex or fetishes or whatever it happens to be. Has that ever entered in? I mean, do guys come in and look almost embarrassed, you know what I mean, to ask you to do things?
Oh, yeah.
Or,
Yes. Yeah, massively. I mean, it's so not uncommon to have somebody that you've seen multiple times, but it takes them, it's the 5th booking before they'll ask for what they really want, and you go, oh, babes, we could have been doing this weeks ago. That's common. It's really common for them to speak in the booking about their feelings, thinking they've done the wrong thing. And of course, I mean, there's certainly those that have partners. There's the shame of cheating, and that's obviously a whole other thing. But yeah, there's so much shame there.
And has anybody ever, speaking of the shame of cheating, sorry for interrupting you with the shame, has anyone ever come in, booked you, kind of went to get undressed and went, oh no, I can't do this. Oh, here, just take the money, I'm going to go.
I have had one. I've had one of those.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because they still got to pay.
Of course,
yeah.
So, there's no refunds.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I suppose they wouldn't mind.
But yeah, I had one who...
Yeah.
I had this person who they sort of, I think because they'd kind of paid and everything, they went, oh, I can't touch you. But they just kind of wanted to look at me and got me to kind of undress, and it was more like a strip show, I guess.
Yeah.
And then they left after 5 or 10 minutes. But and I'm not a stripper. Like, I don't have the skills. So it probably wasn't very
You're not
sexy.
a burlesque dancer. Any stretch of the
No,
imagination.
I was like, I don't know how to do this in a sexy way.
And I'm assuming, people, both men and women, ask you to do things that you're just not willing to do. So what's the most outlandish fetish that somebody has asked you, to do that you weren't willing to do maybe, or maybe you were willing to do it, I don't know. What's the most outlandish? Are they more unusual fetishes?
Yeah, look, that's a hard question, right? Because what's normal, what's weird? So something that I have done is I've got a regular client who is a looner, as in balloon, LOONER.
Okay.
And so they come in the category of poppers and non-poppers. So there are looners who like the popping of balloons, and there are those who don't like the popping. He's a non-popper, thankfully, so I think I'd be very stressed by lots of balloon popping.
Okay. So what do you do with the balloons?
Yeah, so it's interesting. He buys them online. They're sort of adult balloons, like they're designed to be able to take the weight of a person. So they're large balloons.
Okay.
And you can get some lube involved, and like a lot of it, from my perspective, is very non-sexual. Obviously, from his perspective, I guess it is a sexual thing.
Okay.
But for me, balloons don't arouse me. So
they don't arouse me either. No, go on.
No, and they don't arouse a lot of people. But actually, apparently, the looning fetish is quite a common one.
So wait, you rub what? You rub lube on the balloon.
Yeah, a bit of lube on it. Yeah, and we bounce around, and there's some good visuals. So you might have someone lay down and then put the big balloon on top of them, and then the other person lays on top, and you can sort of see through, and then their body's all pressed up against the latex.
Okay.
So apparently that's quite appealing, and they're really joyful bookings. They're really, like, we have so many laughs. We blow up the balloons and we just sort of play around with them. It's very playful.
Yeah.
Which for me, the first time I was like, am I doing this right? Am I supposed to be pretending to be getting aroused? Because I'm just not. But this particular client really, he was like, oh, you've got the best attitude towards it. And I was like, okay, great.
Yeah.
I guess that's a good thing.
Let's just go for it. And when married guys, and what percentage of your clients would be married, or what percentage are single? Are most married?
I reckon for me it's like 50-50.
Okay.
And I think that has changed now that I'm a bit more higher profile, and I've done some media, it's increased the amount of single people that I've seen.
Okay.
But when I was less known, it was a higher percentage of married men. So I don't know what that says. Maybe something about I don't know.
And when they're coming to you, pardon the pun, when they're coming to you, is it because their wife has stopped having sex, their marriage is sexless, or is it because they want to do something that they don't want their wife to ask their wife to do, or the wife just not willing to do it? And if so, second part of the question, what is it?
There's a mix. There's a mix. I would say probably the majority, it's that the relationship has lost intimacy. And that's really hard. And a lot of the time, and they all tell the same story, which is not just that they're not having sex, but they're not holding hands, they're not cuddling on the couch anymore, all the, like, really intimacy. And my personal belief is that you don't necessarily need sex, but you do need that human connection.
Absolutely. Yeah,
so
that's all part of intimacy, isn't it?
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is a human need, is to feel seen and loved and desired by other people.
And if you're
that is a big one.
Yeah, if you're doing that with guys, they want to, so they want to have sex with you, but they want to cuddle afterwards, and they want to snuggle into you.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
How does your partner feel about that, by the way, your husband? How does he feel about that?
Yeah, fine.
Is he okay with that? Yeah?
He's a very chill guy. He's very cool.
He'd have to be,
I entered the industry. Yeah. But I mean, that's also, most of my friends in the industry do have long-term partners or husbands or wives or whatever. But because, a lot of people don't say that publicly, so people don't realise. People just assume that sex workers are single. But, we're professional daters. Like, I think obviously we're going to have good relationships because we're bloody good at companionship. It's what we do,
Yeah.
But he's pretty cool with it. Like, and he wants me to have a good time at work.
Yeah.
If I come home and say I had an amazing day at work, that's great. He doesn't want me
I'm
to
just
have
going
a
to
shit
say, it's
time.
like an interesting day. When you say to your wife, how did you get on
Yeah.
today? Or, I mean, do you have the conversation? So you walk in, he goes, good day at work, honey. How many do you have? Any unusual clients? So it's kind of...
Yeah, kind of, yeah. I mean, these days it's pretty boring, right? Like any job, he's heard all the stories. But, and I'll say, God, this guy said the weirdest thing. What the fuck? And, because we need to debrief. And, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Or I'll say, oh, he said this. Do you think that? And, yeah, we talk about it. And that's probably less about the sex itself, because that part's kind of boring.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty...
It's more about the people, isn't it? The people watching it. Yeah.
It's the people, yeah. And because I meet people from all walks of life, which is super cool. Like, I love it. And I learn about jobs that I didn't know existed. I say, what do you do? And I go, what the fuck? I didn't know that was a job. It's fascinating.
I mean,
It's really
I
cool.
imagine the client... See, there's no class issue here, right? So, I mean, you can have anything from the guy that sweeps the streets to a judge or a policeman or whatever it is.
100%, yeah. And, obviously the people that are on a lower income have to save a lot more because it is a luxury service. It is, not cheap, as we've covered. But, yes, you see people of all types of jobs, all levels of wealth, all different cultural backgrounds. I've had 2 clients that are priests. So, it really can be anyone.
Dousing you in holy water before they did it.
Oh God, I would not sign up for that. I'm not religious myself, so that would be very strange.
I suppose, like a professional footballer or any other kind of activity that involves, being athletic, because you got to be athletic to be having sex all day, right? There's an early retirement age in this, isn't there? Or can you go on to do it till you're 70 years of age or 60 or 65 years of age?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you absolutely can. I mean, I think it would probably change, the amount of people you could see in a day and maybe the nature of the sex that you're having. But, I know sex workers in their 60s, 70s and 80s.
80s?
And there is, yep.
Oh, my producer is she's just fallen off the chair there. I can see her through the glass. So grandma is selling sex.
Yes, yeah. There's gilfs, absolutely.
Gilfs.
And
okay.
Gilf. Yeah. Grandma, I'd like to F. I mean, 100%. There's probably fewer for sure, and not everybody. And actually, and I was going to say, not everyone wants to continue doing it for their whole life. For a lot of people, it's a stopgap or it's a means to an end. But I'm a lifer, and I hope to be doing it as long as I, sort of am able to, and there's also sort of different way. Like you could then, if physically, I understand that. Yeah, it is a physical job, and there may come a time where physically it's not reasonable for me to keep going. But then, I offer cuddle only sessions, and that's something I could continue where we stay fully clothed and we just cuddle and chat. Companionship, just the chatting. Or
what do your family and friends think of it? Like, I don't know if your mum and dad are still with us, or your brothers or sisters or siblings. What do they think of what you do? Do they just not talk about it?
For a long time, we didn't talk about it. I mean, I didn't tell them about it for a few years. And then when I did tell them about it, it was kind of the elephant in the room for a while. But these days, they are incredibly supportive. My mum and dad listen to every episode of the podcast. And,
is that not a bit embarrassing? Graphic. Is that not a bit embarrassing now?
Absolutely. And I forget, and I just talk shit. And then mum goes, "Oh, I didn't need to hear that." And I go, "Well, you're the one that chose to listen."
They haven't looked at your content, have they?
No. Oh God, I hope not. No, I think they're quite. They know my work name, but being Jenna, and I think they really try to avoid that. They know, because they love, they'll listen to this. They love, they're really, really supportive and love all the stuff that I do, but not the sex work, the activism, I guess, and the talking about the industry. But they definitely don't want to think about any of that. But what was it? About a month ago, my mum sent me an email, which is adorable in itself, asking for sex toy advice. because her and Dad haven't bought a sex toy in 30 years or something. They're in their 70s. And she said, we've been looking, and there's so many options, and they're a lot more expensive than they used to be, and I'm not sure. I've got arthritis in my head. And oh my goodness, I thought it was it was a tiny part of me that was like, oh God. But for the most part, I thought this is so wonderful.
I'm getting loads of questions here,
like,
by the way. There's loads of texts and WhatsApps coming in here. People want me to ask you questions. For example, somebody says,
"Oh yes."
Oh, well, somebody wants to know: Can you give average people like us some tips to turn on our partners? A tip that turns on men and a tip that turns on women.
Sure. Okay. Well, I would say for both, the biggest thing, it's about desire. People want to feel desired. Okay. And so that's not even, it's not a physical thing. Really wanting them we all want that. I think that's a huge one.
So tell them how good looking they are. Tell them how wonderful they look. Tell them how amazing they look.
Yeah. And with keeping consent in mind, right? And jump on them, It's the passion. It's the people want to go, oh God, I just want to ravage you right now. And obviously, you need to have their consent to do that. But if you're in a long-term relationship or something, that's usually kind of accepted at that point.
Yeah.
But really want them. And those little things, the hand holding, the little kisses in the kitchen, all that sort of stuff is so it's so important, because it's really hard. Because once all that goes away, then initiating sex is this huge mountain to climb, If you keep up that physical contact and the whether it's romance, whatever you call it, the intimacy.
Yeah, because
then going from that into sex is not as big a jump.
Because as you said earlier on, the more you have sex, the more you'll actually want it. So for those couples who find themselves in a sexless situation, and I remember we did an experiment going back about 5 years ago on the show. We did this campaign for a week to improve people's sex lives, and we had a sexologist in the studio and all that kind of thing. And we picked kind of 4 or 5 couples who weren't having sex anymore in their marriage. And the idea was for 7 days, they had to have sex twice a day. Yeah. And by the end of the 7 days, three of the 4 couples were like rabbits. They loved it. And because it improved their sex life to have sex more often.
Massively.
Because we tend to forget how good it is sometimes, if we kind of we're avoiding it all the time, I suppose.
Absolutely. I do it at work. The amount of times I go, oh, fuck, this is good. Oh, this feels really nice.
Didn't know it could be that good. Yeah.
Away.
Somebody wants to know, by the way, somebody's texting in here and says, have you ever been in any danger? Mm-hmm. Have you ever been in a very dangerous situation, or you felt that your life has been threatened recently?
Yeah, I have. Only, a couple of times. And that is a factor. And I'm going to use this opportunity to preach a little bit, because I believe that the laws in Ireland criminalise the buyers of sex, which is
that's right. And we only changed those laws. We only changed those laws 4 years ago. And believe it or not, I'm in a no. That they're the new laws you're talking about. In Ireland, up to 4 or 5 years ago, sex or the sale of sex wasn't illegal. It was legal.
Yes.
But you couldn't solicit. In other words, you couldn't stand out in the street waving your leg in your fishnet stockings.
Sure.
Or you couldn't curb crawl if you were a guy. But people could do it online and arrange it online, go to apartments, whatever it is.
Sure.
But now, a female Minister for Justice at the time made it illegal to purchase sex. So now if you're caught even, thinking about it, purchasing sex, you're criminalised. So basically what it's done is it's put the industry... Oh, hang on. Oh, I've lost her there. Sorry, I'm going to have to get her back. Oh, I do. And the most important part. Hang on. We'll get her back. We will. I do apologise. Jane will get her back because I've got a minute and a half. You better get her back because we've got to say goodbye to her very quickly. Anyway, yes, so in case people didn't know that, by the way, in this country up to 5 years ago, the sale of sex wasn't illegal. And the purchase of sex wasn't illegal. But the act of solicitation was illegal, which kind of made prostitution illegal because you couldn't prostitute openly. In other words, you couldn't have brothels or anything like that, but you could buy sex online. In other words, on online sites where escorts offer their services, and there was nothing illegal about that. But 5 years ago, we made that illegal because you legally cannot purchase sex in Ireland. And sex workers, of course, defended their position at the time, and they were right. And they turned out to be right in the end, that all it did was drove the sex industry underground, which made it more dangerous for women. And I think that's probably what Jenna is going to talk about as soon as I get her back on the line. And I think she's back. Sorry, Jenna, I was padding for time while we got you back there, but I think I was explaining to my listeners exactly what I was explaining to you just before you got cut off, that essentially it is illegal now to purchase sex, which has pushed the industry underground.
And there's a bunch of other things that come along that, where it's also illegal to work in pairs, for instance.
That's
which,
right.
Where I live, we have decriminalisation, which is fantastic. And that means that I can work with a friend of mine. And that is that's a really standard safety thing, and I can check in with my friends and say, or my husband, which is usually what I do. And I can say, hey, I've arrived, all's good. I'll message you at 11 when I'm done, or whatever. And that sort of thing is criminalised under the system that you have.
Yeah.
And essentially it criminalises a lot of the safety techniques that we use. So I'm incredibly privileged to live in one of only 4 jurisdictions in the world that has decriminalisation.
They have been. They have been talking about it very recently here in Ireland. On a more serious note, they have been talking about that very recently, about decriminalisation.
Good.
I think they believe now they made a mistake with that legislation going back 4 years
They
ago.
absolutely did. Absolutely.
Well, look, it has been amazing talking to you. But before you go, one of our listeners just wants to come on the air. Hang on. Joe. Hi, Joe.
Hello, Niall. Good evening, and good evening to that
Jenna.
lady at the line. Jenna. Nice to talk to you, Jenna.
Now, before she goes, you wanted to come on and you wanted to sing her a song.
Oh, Jesus Christ! I think Jane is going to put me under cloud 9 some night the way she's going.
Go on, Joe.
I'll just sing a little verse. That's all. I'm not going to go any further than that now. I'll just sing,
okay.
Hush, little baby, don't say a word. You can buy me a rattler, or no, something like that. That's all I can sing.
I thought you were going. See, we thought you were going to sing her an Irish song in Irish.
Yeah,
in
that's
Irish,
what I was expecting.
Well, I could sing. I could do a bit of the national anthem, but I think I'll leave that to Padraig and his comrades,
Oh yeah. Well, listen, Joe. Thanks very much indeed. Appreciate it. See you, Joe. Bye.
Thanks, Niall.
Sorry
Good
about that,
night.
Jenna. Good night. I thought he was actually going to sing you an Irish song, but that's not what he was going to do.
Yeah, I was expecting like a traditional,
A traditional kind of Irish song. Yeah, no, that's
Yes.
what I thought it was too. Anyway, Jenna, if people want to look at your content online, where should they go, or where can we direct them to?
Probably my website's jennalove.net. That's probably the easiest. And then from there, you can find all of the crap that I put out into the world.
JennaLove.net. That's JennaLove.net if you want to go on and you want to see the content online. And I'm sure if that's the kind of person you are, and if that's what you're looking for, it'll be well worth it. Jenna, it's been really interesting talking to you. I could talk to you for hours because it's just so interesting listening to your line of work, and because so much people don't know about that line of work. And for people who kind of get a bit judgy, it's just a job. It's just like any other job. It just involves sex.
Yep.
Jenna, listen. Thank you very much indeed. And I appreciate you coming on the air talking to us tonight. Jenna Love.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me, team.
All right, see you. Bye. Don't forget, Google her, by the way, if you can't find her. It's easy enough to Google her. There couldn't be that many people in the world called Jenna Love. JennaLove.net is her website if you want to go on there and have a quick look. That sounds weird. If you want to have a quick look at her. It's not like she's an animal in a zoo or something like that. But go on and have a look. And have a look at her content. There you go. That's how she makes her bread and butter. Jane always finds these very interesting people at the end of the night, doesn't she? Somebody else wanted to come on there now and sing to her as well. But is there something wrong with you all that you want to come on and sing to her? But if somebody had come on and sang in Irish to her, she would have appreciated that. Hush, little baby. Joe, what were you thinking?
Real people, real opinions, real talk radio. The multi-award winning Niall Boylan Show.